I announced it at this orchestra, and there was one of these violinists, kind of this stuffy older lady. She goes, "Oh, why would you want to play with anything called terrible?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, it's a very rich area we live in. I love it around here. There's so much good music and musicians. But nobody thought that there was a possibility of an orchestra for people, you know, to just have fun,
Right.
a fun level.
Right.
That's just kind of like, whoa, no. And that's, I think, a lot of people, you know, still think, wow, you know, this sounds
Right.
unlikely.
Right. Yeah, right. And like we had played over the years many times, chamber music with friends or with each other for the 40 years we've been married, we thought it'd be fun to make it bigger and have more people get together to play for fun. So.
No pressure, no auditions, just to come together and play. I love the idea of playing music in a relaxed setting, no commitments, no auditions. You could be there if you were able to, and if you weren't, you could come the next time.
No, this orchestra is really great and it's amateur and you can come and be terrible and it's all right. Well, I didn't believe that, but I figured, what the heck, I'll go and try it. So that was around 2012, and I showed up with my flute, and the first thing that happened, I sat down where they told me to sit, I took out my flute, people started playing. I'd never played in an orchestra, the trumpets were behind me. I almost dropped my flute, kicked over my music stand, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this. I didn't know how to take direction from a conductor. I didn't know anything except how to stay in my house and play my flute. So it was a terrible experience the first time, but it was a great challenge, and I wanted to do more because of that.
It's really for adults, and sometimes adults, especially adults who are starting fresh as adults, or people like me who restart after a long break, can feel a little bit isolated because they're not maybe at the high level that adults might expect to be, or that people might expect adults to be playing at. Adults can sometimes feel self-conscious playing because, again, they might be beginners or rusty. So Taco doesn't have any of that baggage. You just come as you are, and I thought that was a really neat philosophy. That made me interested in going to Taco.
The chance to play with other people. I mean, you know, when you're just taking lessons or having your teacher's students recital once a year, that's a kind of a lonely existence for a musician. My goal was always to at least play with a small group of people with about the same skill level. I had never played an instrument in an orchestra before. I had accompanied people on the piano and things like that, so I'd always had that kind of group experience. But playing an instrument in an orchestra is a little different. And the scores have a lot more places where you have to be tracking what other instruments are doing and how long they're doing it, how many measures you have to count before you come back in, things like that I just didn't have a lot of practice with. So you learn how to track through a score better. A couple of us knew that there had been an interest in having spin-off small groups from Taco. And so after some discussion, the idea of having taquitos came up, right? These are terrible adult chamber quintets and trios. That's how the taquitos came about. And so now I've got a group of people that I play with pretty regularly, much more often than Taco.
I've been playing for 5 years now, so at this point I can kind of follow along. The fast passages still, I can't quite do them, and I just play the final note or slide up to it or something like that. But it all comes together in the end, and every month we do a different set of music, and sometimes it's just amazing to be able to sit down and play the Egmont Overture by Beethoven, and I don't know, written for competent musicians. But we can play too, and there's simplified arrangements for these pieces. So I just find it fantastic that we can do this, and I really don't understand why art has been sort of stolen by artists and music has been stolen by, professional musicians. I don't think it needs to be that way. I think everyone can find a little slice of their art or music.
We specifically decided this was going to be each month is a one-off experience. And so you get new music every month, and it kind of adds to the variety and interest. And since we're not performing it generally, it doesn't really need to be perfected. Now, Kathy does, when we do the pieces, she will run through it several times and get it to a point where it is better, so that by the end of playing it that day, it's good. And really, everybody at the end of a piece feels pretty good.
Thank you.
No, I mean, it's really impressive.
Well, there are some things, though, that are helpful that I've learned. One is our music library, which I can take you on a tour of. In our garage, we've got now maybe 400 pieces of music. And most of them are arrangements. So they're original pieces arranged for school orchestras. And that means they're a little bit easier. They have fewer key changes. They're just written out in a way that are easier to read, and they're adapted. And you can, when you're buying music from music publishers, especially the educational music publishers, you'll find music rated at different levels. So a junior high orchestra versus a early high school orchestra, and then a later more advanced high school or youth symphony and a college orchestra. So we have arrangements, which makes the music more accessible. So we can play pieces that are famous, well-known, beloved, and we can have an easier time at making them sound good.
Participating in Taco is a breath of fresh air, because the music world, particularly the classical music world, is focused a lot on precision and exactitude and precisely what's on the page. So it's an opportunity to just get there, do, enjoy, just kind of put yourself into without any preconceived expectations with a lot of other people with the same mindset. And in a world where music is regimented, really strict, where excellence, you have to make it your kind of side hobby into a hustle or whatever else like that, it's nice to just go and do a thing for the joy of doing the thing.
Give yourselves a big hand. That was beautiful.
Yeah, so the first time I went was after the sort of intro to orchestra session they had, where they just basically talked about how low-key it was. And that first session with like a full orchestra, that kind of reinforced that feeling that like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to hit all the notes, but I can try and I can improve my skills in a low pressure environment. And then after that first time, I actually also brought my brother along who plays flute, and he hasn't played in years either. So it's been a really fun experience, just both of us going to talk it together.
Just the practicing and making music with a bunch of people is really just a nice, intrinsically pleasant thing to do. In terms of performance, I mean, this actually opened up some other things, because once we got confident, we went to Burning Man and played in the orchestra there and performed in the orchestra. And I think that the taco sessions really helped us be ready to do that. So it's like it's opening doors elsewhere. So in addition to the pleasure of just hanging out with a bunch of people and playing, we've also got this capability to do that with other people because we've kind of become more competent.
Other things I like about taco, I think, is a chance to laugh. We always seem to have a lot of humor flying around, a lot of comical things come up. I know one time, a couple of years ago, Kathy had arranged for us to play at a group in Palo Alto for a Christmas adventure. And we showed up for the Christmas thing, and all the cellos were wearing Santa Claus hats. And it's like, oh, wow, this is so cool, you know?
Well, we have a very large cello section, and the cellists seem to have all the personality in the orchestra. They are always, I'm not quite sure who the ringleader is, but they will show up on Halloween with funny little things attached to their cellos, or they all wore devil horns a year ago. That's a lot of fun. And so I told Carl, who's one of the violinists with a big personality, that violinists needs to step up our game and we need to get into competition with them. So that's one of the most things. And you know, that Kathy just laughs when she sees her players in costume.
There's a kind of a long tradition of viola jokes. People kind of like to make fun of the viola. It's all in fun. It's gentle. Kent can tell the jokes with the best of them.
A beautiful viola, you can have it as a solo, but it has a reputation in the orchestra of being kind of people who couldn't play the violin. So, you know, you couldn't cut it as violin is a very tough instrument. You know, it's just no question, and it's the king of the orchestra. So a lot of people who are great musicians are violinists.
It tends to be overshadowed by the violin. It's you know, it's not its little brother, it's its big brother, but it's maybe its awkward big brother or something.
Viola has a reputation for people who couldn't quite hack all the difficult stuff. The parts can be easier, but they often aren't. But anyway, there's a whole thing about the viola being sort of inferior. There's this whole thing about viola jokes. And if you're in an orchestra, that's kind of like, you know, a thing like people tell viola jokes.
Mm-hmm. So Kent also organized a thing called a Viola Fest. And Kent's a violist, he loves the viola, and he wanted to really celebrate the viola as an instrument.
All the violas that I could ask, I invited them to come. And we did a bunch of viola jokes. A couple of viola jokes. There's some classics, because I'll just, you know. How do you know that a viola is out of tune? How can you tell? Well, the bow is moving, okay? Stuff like that. Or what's the difference? What's the difference between, I like this one, a viola and a coffin? The coffin has the dead guy inside, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're good jokes.
Or there's one, but then violas strike back. They have one that's, what's the difference between a violin and a viola? Or why is a violin smaller than a viola? And the answer is for the big head of the violinist, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So
at Christmas time, we played with a ukulele orchestra, and I'm a big fan of the ukulele because
played was very nice experience. Again, the whole idea of it's okay to make mistakes. It's no stress, just fun. And Kathy asked me, Hillel, we have no oboe. Sometimes the melody of the oboe is missing. Can you transpose the oboe part with your clarinet? I said, it's not that simple. Every note that you see, you need to play one note above. So I tried it one time and it was not that easy. Then I remember, wait a minute, I have that stupid clarinet in C, which I never used in my life. Took it out from the attic and guess what? No problem at all, I can play the oboe part. So I started using it, brought the clarinet in C to the meetings, and I'm now playing the oboe. Then Marsha, very nice lady playing the oboe, joined us. So now finally, first time we have a real oboe. I'm playing the second oboe. And I told everybody, listen, Marsha is the real oboe, I am the fake oboe. I'm not the real oboe, I'm the fake oboe. And then like 2 or 3 years ago, we had a guest conductor, young conductor. And he saw me and said, hey, what are you doing sitting next to the oboe? I said, what do you mean? I'm the fake oboe. So he said, can I call you Phobo? I said, that's a brilliant name, sure. Since then, I am the one and the only Phobo player.
I like just the social aspect of Taco. Everybody there is interesting. You get this nice wine and cheese break in the middle. You can just socialize and mill about. And for trumpets especially, rest our lips.
At the break, we have a spread of food, and it includes wine. Okay, now, wine does not help your ability to play music, in spite of what you would think. When you're playing music, it really, you can't sight read as well. So it's clear this is not like an optimal thing for performance, but on the other hand, it gives us kind of a relaxed thing. A lot of people like this because it's like, yeah, we cut and we take a nice, 30-minute and a half, 20-minute. You're always trying to get us back quickly, but people like to hang out. We have a nice spread with wine. And people bring a lot of good food. I mean, it's kind of a cool cooperative thing.
Yeah, so there are plenty of people who don't partake of the wine. There are a lot of wind instruments, woodwinds and brass, and those musicians don't want to eat anything because that makes playing harder too.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're allowing for this social time is so important because people come and they really have a chance to talk. And they make their own chamber music groups out of meeting other talking musicians. They share ideas on where to get their instruments fixed and who's good teachers to go to. People are always bringing flyers and cards about their events that they're participating in, all kinds of other performing groups, and they share that with each other.
It's a way to meet people.
I love the camaraderie. We always have snack time and wine or various other libations, and it's a treat to meet other people and to interact with community members who otherwise wouldn't be in my sphere. So I appreciate that opportunity as well.
I enjoy the people, and I've gotten a lot out of that. You end up meeting musicians in the community and kind of broadening your relationship to people who are involved in music. And so that's been beneficial in connection with our chorus and, all kinds of other ways. I happen to be the president at this time of the chorus, and getting acquainted with more musicians means that it's easier in making relationships with other choruses or other musical groups.
Let me just say one thing here, though. You have a style that is very tolerant and generous to people. And over time, people love you, really, because of that.
Sometimes we play together and things do not go the way the music is written, shall we say, but Kathy is an incomparable leader. She takes this well in stride, and she doesn't mind laughing and stopping and saying, oh, wait a minute, you know, you guys are actually, we didn't take that repeat that you took, the rest of us, or, you know, whatever the issue is. She's happy to have us try again, and there's never any feeling that there's been a serious error made. It's more just a chance to get everything together as best we can.
Kathy is just a fun, upbeat person who brings that as the paramount part of taco. I love that taco is often very imbalanced in the sense that we can have 18 flutes and 3 cellos, maybe a couple violas and violins, but we still make music, and we make music sound wonderful to all of us.
They like how she stays calm, like when things are not perfect, okay? She has a very good way of sort of telling people that we could do better, and not criticizing, not in a way that makes people feel bad. I mean, you got to realize a lot of people, we have experienced people, but we also have people who are just learning how to be in an orchestra, and this is their first time, and they're all excited, but they're scared to death, like they're going to make some massive mistake and everybody's going to get up and point at them. The people who are in the front, okay, are the better players usually. Everybody comes into taco, a lot of people, and they sit as far in the back as they possibly can because they don't want to be noticed, right? So Kathy's really good. If a section is not, they could do better, the way that she sort of talks to people is very positive, and people love that.
Kathy is so good and so sensitive to everybody's needs. She brings out the best in everyone. And at one point she said, I have a friend who's getting married. Would you like to play at the wedding? Well, I thought, maybe 10 or 12 of us were going to get together. She said, no, just you and maybe a keyboard or a cello. And I said, oh, I don't know. Somebody's wedding? I'm going to ruin this poor woman's wedding by my terrible flute playing. Well, Kathy had me come to her house, and she rehearsed me and Dean Harpster, who is the cellist, for several weekends in a row, and I think even a few evenings, and got both of us ready to play at this woman's wedding, and it went very well. And it's one of my success stories.
I think the Telemann Concerto it's a very delightful piece. It's not too technically difficult. It's something that I felt confident that I could handle technically. So as I was preparing this, Kent, who was in the orchestra, said, this would be fun if you wanted to play it at taco. So he talked to Kathy, and she said, well, no, actually, it's only for strings, and we have winds. So they came up with something different that would still give me soloing experience, which was to play the viola part for Harold in Italy instead. So that has wind parts. So we had this viola fest, and I came and I played Harold in Italy with taco. And it was a nice experience to get me used to playing up in front of a big group before my big solo with the Telemann Concerto.
And I tell people, you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to be forgiving, and this is a place where it doesn't matter. We're doing this for fun. And reassuring people does help them walk in the door and try it. Sometimes they just have to sit in their section. I've told people, play the first note of each measure if that's all you can do, or follow along. And so making it a place where the expectations are, come try it and do it at whatever level you can, does help people get back into playing. And playing music is one of the most incredible, joyful, fulfilling things you can do. With taco, because every time is a new time, I need to be very clear about where the beats are, and I may not get to do a lot of expressiveness. So, because we're not working over many weeks to get to that point. At the beginning of any piece, you want clarity from your conductor. So my aspiration to try to get better and work on more expressiveness, the minute I start to do that, I lose people because we've got to be really clear because everybody's playing this stuff for the first time. We probably have 60 to 70 musicians who show up each time to play. It's an amazing rainbow of musicians, and they've all made taco possible. Without their interest, involvement, enthusiasm, support, we wouldn't have been able to do this. It's been an incredible thing to create. And very fun to have the response we've gotten, and we're truly grateful for that.
Well, I'm very grateful to the number of people who come back and are there. They're like old friends that, show up every month. It's really what I wanted. And, make it a fun a Sunday afternoon playing music with friends.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Right.
Beautiful. Pretty.
Okay, tell the story of how the Terrible Orchestra, what that's...
Well, you mentioned to me at some point that you'd read about Alexander McCall Smith and his really terrible orchestra in Edinburgh, Scotland. And so we started beating around the idea of calling it Terrible. And we had a lot of variations on what a name would be. And somehow we came to taco because we're California and taco's fun and we like tacos.
Yeah,
it's easy to say. And some people have told us over the years that, it's kind of crazy and a little offensive and we're not really terrible. And other people have thought they've seen the humor in it and they've enjoyed that. So that's been, a fun thing.